Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Turn Left. I am your host, Indiana's own Dana Black, coming to you live. Yes, all the way live from Black World Studios, where we talk about Indiana politics from the left side of things. Now, you know, usually at the top of the show, I give a rant. But you know what? I got a special guest, so I'm not even going to waste time ranting. I'll rant at the end because you know I got to talk about the State House. You know I got to talk about the State House. So I'll rant after I talk to my most amazing guest, the wonderful, resilient, and always bringing the funk with a microphone in his hand, our Congressman from Indiana Congressional District number 7. Y'all give it up for Congressman Andre Carson. Sir, welcome to the show.
Queen Dana Black, I'm honored to be here with the Queen herself, the wartime general. I appreciate you. What an honor.
Man, listen, first things first, I haven't had a chance to talk to you in a while. How are you doing? You've just come from celebrating Ramadan, and you also have to use that positive energy in a place that basically says, you know, who you are and how you pray is not welcome in our state, in our country. How are you holding up, sir? How you holding up emotionally?
Thank you. I appreciate the question. I'm holding up, trying to get my blood pressure down and navigate through the madness. But I'm encouraged when I see people like you, when I see activists on the ground, and I talk to activists, talk to voters, talking to people like you about what really matters in our country, and to see the firepower and electricity that's coming from voices like yours. It's encouraging because I think this is a collective effort. There are no big I's and little U's. I see myself as a representative in the true sense of the word. I'm not here to lord over anybody or to be anyone's ruler. I'm just your brother representing who's your interest. And to have someone like Dana Black, whose ears to the ground, whether it's in Kokomo, Valpo, Naptown, Rensselaer, Vincent, Evansville, Gary, South Bend, Fort Wayne, Lafayette, it's on lock.
It is because we got to do the work, and it's about encouraging people to be civically engaged. But I can't imagine anything more encouraging than to watch your friend, Senator Cory Booker, stand at the microphone for over 25 hours to get rid of old racist Strom Thurmond's, whatever his name is. I don't even care no more. Erase it from the record books when he was arguing about our civil rights and our humanity. Talk about the emotional impact and the resiliency shown by the senator and how you felt about his 25-hour epic stand.
I mean, it was so moving to see the kind of commitment that Senator Booker showed, the kind of passion that he showed. There was a selflessness in his presentation. And I think it really spoke to the fact that we are in critical times. And these critical times require critical responses. They require responses that not only have symbolic value, but that are substantive legislatively, substantive in terms of our voter turnout, substantive in terms of the impact that it will have. And I think that was a demonstration of the lengths we are willing to go to have our voices heard, to have our constituents' voices heard, and have the people's voices heard. You know, you hear it every day. People are frustrated, they're upset, there's a sense of hopelessness, there's a sense of fatigue, there's a void, there's a feeling that there's a void. And in that void, that is where leaders rise up, like yourself and others. In that void, that is where people recognize their own personal power to affect and impact change. But also in that void, there are people who want to take advantage and manipulate our emotions and voices. We saw it with the Black Lives Matter movement, which you were on the forefront. I was on the forefront as well. And so I think that Senator Booker is symbolic of the moment. And the moment requires leaders who are ready for the moment. The moment requires boldness. And this isn't the moment for passive leadership. This isn't the moment for let me just play it cool and lay low and let this thing blow over. This is the moment for boldness. This is the moment for a kind of internal fortitude that will introduce controversial pieces of legislation that may not get you the best media coverage, but it does what's best for the people. We still have to deal with a looming recession that's coming soon. We still have to deal with us reeling from the first Trump administration.
Right.
We have to deal with the fact that Project 2025 has been in effect for the past 3 months, arguably the past 5 months, but certainly administratively the past 3 months or so. And so these rollouts of Project 2025, these executive orders, are a clear indication of the first 100 days, which they say define any presidency, but also the first 100 days of confusion, of terror, of political blockades, and embolden people who want to see our country go back to a mythical good old days. And embolden people who don't want to see the Dana Blacks. They don't want to see Andre Carsons. They'd rather see folks like you and me in a position that makes them feel comfortable. But this is not the moment for that. This is the moment for truth.
And see, I'm so glad you brought that up because well, first of all, Project 2025 in Indiana has been going on for a couple of decades now. They've been rolling it out piece by piece. We've been ground zero and the testing, incubator for a lot of that nonsense. But you talk about how they don't really see us as equals. This administration just fired only the second Black general to be in the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and the first woman who was the admiral of the Navy. Let them both go, right, and replace them with white men. At the same time, you got Pete Hegseth and Mike Waltz, sending secret information over text chains and Gmail. You were in those hearings because you're on the National Security Committee. Talk to us about, one, are we safe as a nation with these, second tier, if the Black general and the white woman were DEI hires, then I call them the DAH hires, the dumb as hell hires. You ain't got to sign off on that. You ain't got to sign off on that. But talk to us. Are we safe? And what measures and what steps are Democrats and you and we doing to make sure that secrets and our safety and people, the enemy, are not getting ways to sabotage us and hurt us as a nation?
Well, that's a phenomenal question. It's one of the things that keeps me up at night is our national security. I'd like to say in a broader sense, we are safer than most nations. But our biggest threat, as I mentioned in the very public hearing last week with the new old DNI director, Tulsi Gabbard, the new FBI director, Kash Patel.
Tulsi Gabbard is a Manchurian candidate. I don't care what nobody say, but go ahead.
Well, she's now the director of ODNI, which oversees all of our 16 plus intelligence agencies. I served with her in Congress. Kash Patel, who was a member or a staffer on the Intelligence Committee, of which I currently serve. And I also serve on the China Committee. And I can tell you that when this kind of information is shared, oftentimes it's discussed in the Situation Room, in the White House. Oftentimes, very sensitive communications are communicated on different platforms, secret intranet or internet platforms, and JWIX and Cipranet and Nipranet. And these are the appropriate channels, as well as others, to communicate very sensitive and top secret information, not displaying war plans, not displaying coordinates, not sharing with multiple people in a very casual way, and certainly not members of the press, who we appreciate for being the fourth estate and holding the government accountable as the founding fathers envisioned. But I think in a very real sense, this trivializing, you mentioned Hegseth, Secretary Hegseth, this kind of trivializing and minimizing the ways in which our national security apparatus has operated, I think is a big disappointment. Now, let me say, given the history of intelligence agencies and Black folks in particular, has not been great. We saw the disastrous COINTEL program under J. Edgar Hoover, COINTEL, in which he targeted Black leaders. He was in search of a Black messiah, if you will. And so anybody who resembled that, man or woman, he targeted them and sent out a slander campaign to minimize and lower their views in the sights and eyes of the people.
Yeah.
And we saw that happen with state actors and non-state actors, Russia, China, and others during the Black Lives Matter movement,
yes,
where leaders were targeted, leaders were minimized. And there's always a lens when you talk about the general who was just dismissed and other very prominent African-American leaders within our federal government. There's still this sense, even people who may surround themselves with people of color, they say the right things, they say all the good talking points, but there's a stench of racism that comes from them. There's a spirit of low expectation that comes when it comes to Black people in prominent positions. There are people who still feel like Black people are inherently lazy.
Come on. How you gonna be lazy when you brought us over on boats to do the work for free? Ain't nothing lazier than not wanting to pay people to do your labor because you can't stand the sun. But all right, I'm gonna let that go.
That part. And so whenever a Dana Black excels or someone else who is prominent that we're proud of, no matter how much you achieve and accomplish, there's always a sense of you're not doing enough. That sure is a lot for you, because there's this notion, because we are all socialized in Western society, that certain races particularly are inferior and are just lazy or prone to criminal activity.
Man.
Prone to bullying their way or intimidating their way to the top. And they could say the right things, but their consciousness, their subconsciousness, the Freudian slips always come out.
Freudian slips. They just be trying to pretend like it. They be saying what they really say. And you know what? All of us can be Fred Hampton. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm sorry. My bad.
I just saw his son. He came to my hip hop panel. Yeah.
Oh, what? Oh my God! I wish I was there.
But get him on the pod. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can't call us lazy when Harriet Tubman was going back and forth, forth and forth. She wasn't lazy. You know what I'm saying?
We're about due for a karaoke on that.
Yeah. Oh, we past due. So now you have, President Musk and Associate President Mr. Orange Man. We are seeing the total destruction and dismantling of systems. The only thing that's kind of holding us together right now is the judicial branch. And unfortunately, a lot of your colleagues do not understand the Constitution because they seem to think that the judicial system, the judicial branch, is not a check on both Congress and the president, because it's all checks and balances. But you have colleagues that don't understand that. What can you say to us as this apartheid-loving South African who gives, Heil Hitler salutes, is literally tearing down our infrastructure? What can you give us to say, what is Congress doing from a democratic perspective to stop or to hinder or slow down the harm that is going to be caused to citizens when these systems break down?
That's a great question. I'm very disappointed in what I've seen come from Mr. Musk. As a big, I was a big supporter and fan. I've toured SpaceX facility, and he and his staff were very informative, very accommodating, and they have done and still do a lot of good work in terms of the earlier question about national security and global security. But I think Democrats share a disappointment. The people share a disappointment in the kinds of cuts that have been made. Listen, I'm all for austerity, and I'm all for making sure we're managing and eliminating governmental inefficiencies and waste. That's what inspector generals are there for. Guess what? The president got rid of them. We all have the same goal, and that goal is to defeat Donald Trump and his very destructive agenda. families across the country, they're in search of stability. I know a lot of people who are just frustrated, as do you.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm frustrated.
yeah.
Democrats effectively lost the last election. We're still facing that reality. And it's a wake up call for the entire country, but we can't lose sight of what's really at stake. So we can't be tearing each other apart during that process,
No.
though I think that this is a moment for bold leaders like yourself, bold leaders like others, to really be platformed in a way that connects the party to the grassroots, to the
Yes.
streets. And if we don't have that, it's going to be the kind of damage that will take decades to recover from. I mean, listen, Democrats are the ones who are defending Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Democrats are the ones who got us the Inflation Reduction Act, and Democrats are the ones who were really responsible for saving the country and saving our banks during
Yes.
the previous economic downturn.
When Republicans destroyed the economy again.
Absolutely. And, you know, we're seeing where school districts are having to lay off teachers. Students won't be able to get the help that they need financially. That's why we've been pressing. I've asked for a meeting from the Department of Education secretary, which it hasn't happened yet. But we're seeing students' rights being gutted.
Oh my God.
We're seeing students with disabilities have fewer and fewer protections. We could ask any parent who knows, and they'll say we should never cut costs when it comes to education. But we have to have federal oversight to make sure that folks have fair access to education. We want to make sure that underserved communities really get the resources they need. And removing those protections is just going to deepen disparities.
I mean, they're getting rid of a whole department. You know, the Department of Ed is out the door. But you know, something else that is crazy, and help us understand it. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, called it in to voting this week because there's a bipartisan bill on the floor right now that would give elected Congress folks who have children or their wives have children 10 weeks to be able to vote remotely. We see that voting remotely can happen because when we had a pandemic, it happened. But Mike Johnson has now decided to stop and end all voting this week to thwart that. Women are raising families, having kids, and becoming elected officials. Talk to us how important this bill is for our society as a whole and to make sure that we have great representation.
No, that's a great question. I mean, you know, and ideally you want representatives in Congress, in DC, on the floor voting, talking. I think that there have to be exceptions. They were done decades ago. They happened during COVID. Listen, life happens.
Right.
We know that. Emergencies happen. Health issues matter. You know, Dana, you and I are middle aged. We're still young.
Man, we young. I'm a young 54.
But it's real out here. Come on, super young.
Come on, I'm a young 54.
Come on now, and black don't crack.
Man.
What you know about that, Queen? Okay. So, and black is beautiful and black is great. But I'll say this: life happens. No matter how old you are, health issues will come up. And family issues will come up. Having children is a serious responsibility. And to have a congresswoman who has given birth to a child, I think the same kinds of protections that any other mother should be afforded in this society, in terms of maternal leave, maternity leave, and those kinds of things. I think a congresswoman should be afforded similar protections while still being able to represent her district in an effective way. What message are we sending to young girls, young women who aspire for political office, who aspire to be a congresswoman one day? And I ain't mad at that. What kind of message are we sending to them when they have biological responses to the environment that they can't fulfill their duties because they're a mother?
Yeah.
or because they're simply a woman.
Yeah. And
I think it's the wrong message.
and then you can't run around and say, you know, women don't have autonomy over their bodies, right?
Yeah.
And then when they have the children, you like, well, you good luck, you on your the hypocrisy. I think is what has really driven people insane. You know, we're watching, Mike Braun telling municipalities they got to do more with less, but then Diego Morales is over in India on an economic trick. Bro, you're the Secretary of State. You know what I'm saying? So like you seeing like this duality of what they say versus what they want us to do. They can do whatever they want, and then y'all just suck it up, right? You know,
that's right.
But with that frustration, people are energized and they want to know, what do y'all need us to do? What do you as an elected official, what do y'all need us to do to come help you, do what you got to do inside that house?
That's such an important question. I mean, it's no secret that, you'll see me on the House floor. You'll see me in Brightwood, Hallville, Broad Ripple,
everywhere
on the South Side, everywhere. I'm outside, but I'm also on the front lines with many activists. That's no secret about me. I mean, it's been a cause of controversy for many people because I was on the front lines of Black Lives Matters. And the front lines when it came to attacking teachers. I've been on the front lines as it relates to Gaza and other things. And we're going to stay on the front lines. I think it's voices like yours, activists, concerned citizens, showing up to these events, showing up, calling their members of Congress, calling their state legislators, their state reps, their state senators, their city councilors, their members of Congress, their senators, and saying, this particular bill that you voted for is unacceptable, or the bill that's coming down the pike that's on the legislative agenda, we're against it. Here's why. This is where we disagree. And you have to understand, people have to understand, I know you get this, because as an exec and as someone who's been a staffer, you've seen both sides of it. Staffers are so critical. And sometimes having those relationships with staffers can have that kind of impact on legislation or have a bill killed in committee before it even gets to the state house floor or the congressional floor or the city council to be voted on. But engaging and showing people that you won't go for it, it's unacceptable. There was a time where people could come to communities, they go to a church, a mosque, a synagogue, a community center, they speak, they take a picture, they eat, they pray, they cut out. And when they're voted into office, they vote against your and my interests.
Right.
Those days are over.
Yeah.
And so now is a time to keep our feet on the necks of those who take us for granted.
One of the things I love about you, like you said, we outside. I learned that from my 23-year-old nephew. I was like, what? I'm what? Anyway, I've also included on this live stream on Facebook. You have a link on your website that says, "I want to hear from you." That means that you want your constituents to share with you their concerns, their interests, their worries, their joys. What will your staff, when we feel those things out, what is the process that your staff takes to get that information out? And then is there like a response process? I mean, because people just want to feel heard, right? And if they feel this out, and I linked it because I know that you're outside. I've been in spaces with you. And like when Banks is too scared to show up, you there, right? Yeah. What happens? What happens to those thoughts that you get from those links?
Well, we look at these queries and we answer them as rapidly as possible. I mean, there are thousands of them, right? And some of them have similar questions or just phrased differently. So we answer them. It's a collaborative effort amongst the team. And some of them, there may be a delayed response. That's because we're working on getting an answer. And sometimes we'll mail out an answer. We send a lot of letters weekly and monthly to constituents answering prominent questions and answering some questions that have a bit nuance. So sometimes we have to get back to people when their questions have the kind of specificity that's related to budgets, the kind of specificity that will raise questions about funding being cut as it relates to the Veterans Administration or the Social Security Administration, the kind of specificity that requires us to talk to the State Department to answer visa questions and answer questions about visa waivers, because that's what we do. And so it's a collaborative effort, and sometimes it takes longer than others. But when you have concerned citizens out there who are pressing their elected officials to get answers, you will get them. Now, we know that there are trolls out there. We know that there are entities that have political agendas.
Haters are going to hate. That's their job.
Haters are going to hate. They're going to drop seeds in the comment section. I mean, we saw a Black Lives Matter movement that there were state actors and non-state actors who were deliberately dropping comments in comment sections to sway public opinion. I mean, it's a thing that's done among spy networks, but it's also a thing that's done amongst political movements, so nothing's new under the sun.
I mean, people do that. They want to discredit your credibility, but they really can't when you keep showing up. And the reason why I even asked the question was, Dana Colbert, the executive director of our state party, and I, we've been doing these educational videos about processes and how things work. And so sometimes we have to set expectations, right? So yes, our congressman wants to hear from you, but let's set expectations about what that looks like, what the process is, because then when they ask their question, they're not going to get mad because you didn't respond to them in 48 hours, right?
Yeah.
So
that's a great point. We try to have a time frame, Madam Dana, but you're right. I mean, and we don't have a big staff, right? So there are probably 8 here and 8 in DC, and mix some interns in there, 1 or 2 part-time folks. So it's not a big operation, but we're not going to do like Doge and have a bunch of folks using software and AI to make decisions about people's lives. We want to be very thorough and deliberate in getting back to constituents.
Man, I really appreciate it. I'm cutting up on the time. I always get excited and talk fast when you're around because I'll be trying to get all these questions in. But also I put your donate link in because you are running for re-election, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So your donate link is in there. I've seen some folks that have already donated to you. I want to just, before you go, I want to read a couple of the comments because you need to know you are valued out here. Thanks. Terry Whit Bailey from up in Muncie says, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your leadership and service. Then
that's
got
a queen right there now. That's a good sister right there. Yeah.
There's Christine Mobley, a dear friend of mine in the 9th district. She says there are a lot of us in the 9th that appreciate you and how you represent Indiana.
Thank you, Christine.
Bold and Prepared from Linda Lewis. Just donated from Belinda Drake. Leah Betty says, thanks for not embarrassing the state, Congressman. And they've been asked for you to come to rural Indiana if you ever get a chance to go talk to them.
I'm down. The Republicans have this year's schedule so packed, and they have us out in DC so much because they're trying to push Trump's agenda through, and they don't want him going against them in their primary next year. So they filled the schedule up with us being in DC. I'd love to go to rural Indiana. I used to work for the state. So I traveled to rural Indiana for over a decade, a decade. So yes, I'm down.
Sir, you are amazing. Thank you for giving us this much of your time. I appreciate you. I know that you are working hard for her.
Thank you.
And emotional blows just because of your existence. So please make sure that you take care of yourself because Marjorie Taylor Greene ain't worth taking her out. We just gonna let that clown sit over there and not know nothing about nothing, talking about third terms. Tell her to go on somewhere. I know you be wanting to, you a professional. See, I be wanting to tell them. They don't want none of this. Thank you so much.
Oh, we need it.
Man,
can I say something?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
I tell you this all the time, but I have to say it in front of people. I love you dearly. I tell you this all the time, but I truly mean it because I think you and I think we understand one another, probably because of our journey, different yet similar, in our environment. And I think the way you shine and soar as a beautiful queen, just your resilience, I just love that about you. And I've always been a cheerleader of yours. I always feel like you should be platformed. When I look at the attacks on DEI, eliminating diversity, equity, inclusion, freezing out civil rights enforcement and fair housing enforcement. Um, it hurts my heart as a legislator. But to know there are people like you, Dana, on the ground, it means so much. We've had, wow, a few town halls this year already. We're going to have a series we're going to have more of them, right?
You should.
I just did a community chat with Robin Winston a few weeks ago.
Okay.
Downtown. Now our office, let me say this for the record, our office, I just talked to a police officer, a sister in town. I won't blow her spot up. She's a police officer. We've had several death threats at our office, threatening to kill me and threatening to kill the staff. We've had like 3 or 4 in the past month. And so this police officer, local police officer, was reminding me in my fervor that we don't want to have another Gabby Gifford situation.
Yeah.
I'll be very mindful, even with my, because you and I love people,
Right.
To be very mindful in this environment. And she's looking at the same threat assessments I'm looking at, and hers are more local and probably more secretive based on the unit that she works. So it was a good reminder. I just want to kind of put that out there.
And again, that's about setting expectations. I know a lot of people want to see you,
point.
A lot of people want to see you in person. But when you explain it just like that, sometimes my life can be in danger. We don't know who might be ready to pull the trigger, and we don't want to get, sometimes you got to set expectations. So if you don't come in person, there's a reason. But before you go out, do you remember the first time we met? And it's okay if you don't, because you got a lot going on.
I remember it was a love fest.
Yes, it was day one. So we were at it was my first ever fundraiser for Kate Sweeney Bell when she was running for recorder. And I had on my sweater vest and a bow tie. I still had my locks at the time. And I was kind of playing shy. I wasn't really shy, but I didn't know nobody. So I was just scoping the scene out, right?
Yeah.
And you were sitting over there. Plus, I was groupieing out a little bit because I'm a political groupie, elected official groupie. And you said to me, you looked over at me, you said, "You running for office?" And I kind of yeah. You looked me dead in my eye and said, "You can win."
Absolutely. And I stand by that today.
You don't know how powerful and impactful that was on my sheer existence. This is not a knock. I am not a legacy. I didn't know nobody in politics. I just was tired of what Brian Bosman was doing and how he was treating the LGBTQ plus community. And I'm going to run against him. And that was it. But to hear somebody that has been elected at multiple levels and been around with this Indiana politics for a long time to look at me in my masculine center, cross-dressing, bow tie behind, and said, "You can win." You have no idea. That's the kind of dude you were for me day one. You gave me confidence. You let me go out here and start a podcast and be like, I'm going to run it the way I want to run it because I know I can win.
Wow. I'm trying to be congressional. I'm trying to be hard. You know what I mean? But you're going to make me tear up in here. But let me say, I was raised by strong sisters. I was raised by Dana Blacks. Even, I talked on a podcast recently, a Patrick's podcast, about how, my mother, who was like my best friend, she suffered from schizophrenia. So we lived with different people. We lived in a shelter downtown, and I was placed in a guardian home. And, my grandmother, she decided to step in and raise me. Mm-hmm. And
the wonderful Julia.
Yes, I miss her dearly. But she raised me in the hood. It was a crack-infested neighborhood, right? But I was still exposed to other things. And she used to always tell me, she said, you're a lot like me. The world's just going to have to be your family, baby. I don't know what to tell you.
Right.
And when I saw you, I saw myself because I was raised not only by Dana Blacks, but with Dana Blacks. And I felt like I understood not only the assignment, but the energy. And I stand on what I said before because listen, it's time for the non-traditional. Mm-hmm. It's time for the non-traditional. I'm blessed to have been, I'm sad my grandmother never got to see me in Congress. I was on the council when she passed, but it's time for the non-traditional.
Yeah.
I see people who, and I'm blessed to come from that great legacy of she was non-traditional, single mother, and when she divorced my grandfather, and she never got to finish school like she wanted to, but I put her up there with the deepest scholars.
Right.
I love her dearly for that. But I'm non-traditional, and I'm unashamed of that. You're non-traditional.
Right.
And I often see people who speak to privilege, who come from privilege,
Right.
who are trying to crush the Dana Blacks or the Andres because maybe our background isn't representative of what they see as being a proper democratic experience, small d.
Come on.
It may not be erudite enough. It may not have the kind of refinement that they think really represents the people.
But,
Well, I would argue that Dana Black is closer to the people than many of them will ever be.
absolutely.
They're
Absolutely.
closer to what most Americans are, you are,
Yes.
than what they will ever be. Now, there's a space for them.
Absolutely.
there's certainly
That's the
a
thing.
place-
That's the thing, Congressman. There's a
Yeah.
space for everybody. If
Yes.
you have the drive, if you have the intellect, because I'm really tired of dumb elected officials. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm really tired of them.
Yeah.
But because remember, you're supposed to be the best and the brightest, but not so much, right? If you are willing to put in the work, right, and have a little bit of tough skin. And I had this conversation just today. There are always obstacles in the way. There's never not obstacles. You remember the old spiritual going up the rough side of the mountain? You go up the rough side so you can grab a hold of something. You don't slide all the way down to the bottom.
No,
But those
that's right.
obstacles are there, and you have choices. You can go around them, you can go over them, you can go under them, or you can go through them. But those
That's right.
obstacles shouldn't stop you from your whatever it is that you're trying to do, right?
Yes.
And these people,
Yes.
I got too much Fannie Lou in me.
I can see that. I can see that. I can see that.
Fannie Lou,
I can see that. I can see that. I
Man,
can see that.
you are
Well,
dope.
you know, I come from not only the Julia Carson, but the Malcolm X tradition.
Come on.
MLK in there. But at the same time, little Adam Clayton, some Marcus Garvey,
Come on.
and others. So I come out of that tradition, which is in itself non-traditional.
Yeah.
Come out of the tradition, remember hearing, I'm coming up on the rough side of the mountain. I'm doing my best to make it in. But I also come from the tradition of part of my tradition, the Africans who were brought here as slaves. Many of them are Muslims, an emergence in the 1920s in the Midwest, in Chicago, in Detroit, in Indianapolis, establishing businesses, establishing self-reliance, speaking to Black folks who had come out of slavery, who were taught that they were less than, and scripture was used to solidify
Ooh.
a sense of inferiority.
Ooh.
But coming out of a tradition that says, no, the opposite is true.
Yeah.
Your Blackness is beautiful. It is what makes you great.
Child, if we weren't
That's
so
not
great.
to put down any other God's creation, but certainly your Blackness is a part of your greatness.
If we weren't so great, they wouldn't work so hard to suppress us, baby. They got to work hard.
Come on now. And people talk about, Black folks are bringing up ancient past, rewriting history. Well, a proof of the effort to dismiss Black history is what has been done in Florida.
Man.
An erasure of Black history.
Man.
What is an attempt now to remove so-called wokeness from anything that's attached to the federal government?
Yeah.
If that could happen now, why wouldn't it have happened back then?
Man, and look, we ain't even talked about, Congressman, the fact that they are literally snatching people off the streets because they are expressing an opinion that's maybe different than the administration. First Amendment is supposed to be the First Amendment. I thought it applied to anybody that was within our borders, and everybody got due process. And if you were here legally, you were protected on this. But you got Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying, well, we're just going to revoke your green card and your students' visas if you have. They want to say one thing, but what it really is they don't want you to stand on what you believe in. They don't want you to stand 10 toes down in whatever it is that you believe in. Bro, they snatching people off the streets and sending them to El Salvador, and we don't even know about all the cases. What makes us think that they won't do the same to us?
That's right. That's right. We're working with Many of these civil liberty organizations, shout out to ACLU, shout out to Impact and CARE and other groups who are pushing back. We saw what happened to our sister who was approached by Homeland Security
In
in
mass.
her hijab and taken away. We saw what happened to the brother while his wife is expecting, taken away and sent down south. This is a clear message. Anybody who has a critique or criticism of the administration will be dealt with the way we see fit. Not only is this fascism, this is an entry point into a dictatorship.
When we had our people's town hall, and Andrea Scott obviously always represents on your behalf.
District director, she's tough.
She represented. I mean, she brought that funk. We, you know, there were people talking about they were fearful to speak out because they might end up on the list. When it was Indiana's Own's time to take the mic, I told them, put me on the list because I ain't never scared. Put me on the list.
That's right.
I'm ready. I'm ready because you're not finna tell me my whole entire life that America is the land of the free and the home of the brave, and you can be whatever you want to be as long as you work hard for it. And now that I'm old, I'm 54 and got some sense about me, you want to tell me I can't be me? Man, beat it. You can't legislate us away. You can't erase our history. Queen. You know what I'm saying? They talk about they can get rid of DEI and our history, but they forget that the internet ain't going nowhere. Every time one server fills up, they add another one. So the internet just grows and it grows and it grows. And all you got to do is type in what you want to learn about and it'll be right there.
That's right. You know, to that point, first of all, let me say that town hall was fantastic. It was good seeing concerned Hoosiers come out. I love seeing white brothers and sisters being bold and taking a stand. I wish I were there to hug every last one of them. Andrea represented very well. But look, we've seen businesses that have doubled down on their diversity commitments because Costco. We know a diverse workforce is a strong workforce. Shout out to Costco.
Yeah, Costco.
We're seeing the impact the boycott is having on a lot of businesses that we love.
Yeah.
That we love.
Yeah. So we just got to stand together. Like, and I put a post up the other day about, you know, a lot of the work has got to be internal too. Democrats attacking Democrats, and it just drives me nuts because no, we are not all going to agree on everything, but we at least are on the same side of the fight. And whatever energy and fervor you are bringing to tearing down one of us, you need to be bringing it to the other side. And I promise you, we can make a difference. And when I decided to run for county chair, when I called Mila, I was like, Mila, it's not about, you know, you or me not liking you or anything like that. I feel like I can do something different. And when it was all said and done, and they called her name as the returning county party chair, only thing I can do is say, hug her and say, now how can I help you with your digital fundraising?
I love that.
You know what I'm saying? Like all of that, it's the personal, I get it. But if you're in it for anything other than the work of improving the lives of Hoosiers, step out the way.
Yes. No, that's such an important point. And I love the mature response that you gave, and which is another reason why I think you should be platformed. And I stand on that and I stand by that. But I, you know, as I've said before, I think it took me 5 races to finally get my own turn.
Right.
And there were fellow Democrats who spent millions of their own money in a race. And some of their supporters were not very kind to me. And these were Democrats. But that's okay.
It's okay.
Because some of those folks are my biggest supporters now. Yeah. And I think some of that is good for the party. What crosses the line is when it's so vile and so hatred focused, and there's an underlying sense of racism. I don't care about your proximity. It's still this racist agenda. And yes, I said it. And it's helping the other effort. Don't try to use Democrats to score points for what you're really trying to do. That's unacceptable.
Tell them. And, you know, and I remind people, and I say it at least 5 times every election cycle with almost every in the primary season. My congressman said, you know, competition is good. And if you are bringing good ideas, and you present them to the people and they decide to choose you, that's fine. But if they don't choose you, stay in the fight, Stay engaged because there's so much work to do. I can't do it all. You can't do it all. Your job is to cast the right vote in the House. My job is to bring people the information. There's other people's job to raise money. There's other people's job to organize the street activists so that we can get what's going on in the street in the chamber, right? Everybody got a job to do. You got me fired up.
No, I love it. You know, I ran for school board. It was a special election. I lost. People were talking greasy. I felt the way for a minute. I dusted it off and got back out there. So listen, we all have to come together at the end of the day to push back against Donald Trump. I think we have health care on the line. We have Medicaid on the line, Social Security. I just met with some employees from HHS who had been terminated a couple of days ago.
Yeah, I got an email.
I met with another gentleman whose family is in Indiana. He was with the State Department, Queen Dana, for 13 years. He was a career employee, served in Iraq, Egypt. He got a letter saying he and 10 other people will have to leave by June 1st. Wow. They're putting together a class action. And he's like, my leverage is I'll stay if they let me stay on because I have 3 daughters to feed. It broke my heart to hear this brother say that. Brilliant.
Yeah. That's the real fight.
And he's from rural Kentucky originally. Wow. Has family in Indiana.
And that's the fight. That's what I wanted, more than anything, share that, because when it's all said and done, we all want the same things. We want to be able to take care of our families. We want to have a roof over our head. We want to be able to take a vacation every now and then.
Come on now, that part.
And that's why you are so important to us. Your tenure, your seniority is up. That's why you on the security committee. I mean, my goodness, you're a Muslim on the security committee. Does anybody even understand the significance of that?
I'm watching them and watching me. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but I'm just saying. And so, I uplift you. Always will. You've always been like you always pour into people. And that's and I try to take that and I try to pour into people too. So, I know your staff is killing me right now. They mad at me because they.
Yeah, but when we get together, it's lights, camera, action.
It's on because people don't get to when we finally get comfortable, people get to see you. You do the congressman thing, but you still get to let your hair down. You go back to your hip hop days. You go back to them days as you was on the ones and twos.
Come on now. Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean that's another thing. Doing that. Opening up for Too Short, Do or Die. Ice Cube, The Brat. I failed in that. Shout out to Catch 22, SWAT Team, and some other group. Foothill Cypher.
Come on.
Peace to Gods and Earth. So all of that, but that's a part of my journey, just like you have your journey. And I'm not ashamed of my journey. My journey may not be as refined as many people would like as a representation of the party, but I think I have a journey that connects to the people like you.
Yeah. I'm a failed stand-up comic. That didn't work out so well. But
that's jokes now.
But that's what's so important. And again, I thank you so much for giving Turn Left listeners. We've had a nice, got reactions, we got comments. You give of your time. You're not afraid to show up in places. I know the death threats, but they don't want that smoke. They really don't. They don't want that smoke, bro.
And I stay outside.
You stay outside. Outside. Give us a parting shot, and I'm gonna let you get on out of here because I know you got so much to do.
Well, listen, it is truly an honor to serve as your representative. It's a responsibility that I do not take lightly. It's something that I value very deeply. I go to work every day with a sense of purpose, with a sense of mission. People make fun of me, my colleagues, because all I talk about is Indiana and the great Hoosier state. I tell them that Indiana's airport has been voted #1 10 years in a row. I tell them that we still host the largest single sporting day event in the world, the Indy 500. And I think throughout my efforts, I've been bipartisan. I've had dozens of bills signed into law by Democratic presidents and Republican presidents.
That's what's up.
And I couldn't have gotten it done without the help of Republicans who saw value in the legislation that I introduced. Now, I'm not trying to be in Congress for 50 years, but I want to stay long enough. I'd love to be a chairman. I'd love to stay long enough to pass it on to the next person one day.
Yeah.
if you all keep me in office.
Yeah.
And, the bills that I've had signed into law, they included pancreatic cancer research, funding for HBCUs, airline safety measures, providing help with suicide prevention, mental health assessments. We've supported many nonprofits in this community, from Flanner House, Jewish Federation, to small nonprofits. I mean, that's the work that we do. And it's a tremendous honor that I get to go to work every day and stand up on behalf of Hoosiers and stand up on behalf of the least of these who get overlooked, who are forgotten, who are disparaged. But I have my single voice as a congressman to represent you. It is not my job as a congressman to lord over you. It's not my job to be a ruler over you. It's not my job to be a king over you. I'm simply a representative of your taxpayer interests, and I do it with pride, and I love you, and help us in this fight to take down this destructive administration. Help us in this fight to push back against the growing xenophobia, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, anti-Blackness, anti-immigrant sentiment that is coming out of this administration, its acolytes, and its policies. And I think we can do it. And let us not be deceived. The work is not yet done. The work is just starting. And this is the moment for you to lead. This is the moment for us to lead. And this is the moment for the distracted and the disrespected, but now who are interconnected, to step up and say, it's our time.
That's him. Also remind them we host Super Bowls and NBA championships. I mean, NBA All-Star games.
Hello, somebody.
Yeah, okay. Sir, thank you so much. Blessings to you and yours. Hopefully we can do this again before, let's, it ain't got to be 2 years before we talk again. So
No, never. Right. That's unacceptable.
I'll make sure I reach out to the staff and bring us whatever you want to bring us. I think it's important to talk to the people so that they know what you're working on out there. So I look forward to connecting with you again.
What a tremendous honor. I love you dearly. Thank you, ma'am.
Have a good one, my brother.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Man, listen, let me tell you how great my congressman is. When I talked to the staffer and we were getting things squared away for today, they told me I was going to get maybe 20 or 30 minutes. But you see, me and the congressman, we chuck it up. Like, if you don't know, the congressman is just chill. He's like the chillest dude. You could have that same conversation that I had. He would be ready to rock with you. You know what I'm saying? I do love talking to him, and he gave us some great nuggets that I hope you guys can take with you. He doesn't have all the answers. No one person does. But if we all work together, his conversation about unity and coming together, man, I felt all of that. I do have a rant. But I'm so full from talking to the congressman. I mean, I know some people think that things are supposed to work one way, but they actually work a different way. And that's why I asked him, hey, how long does it take for people to get in touch with you? Set expectations. And I also was like, let's do this again. Let's talk some more so that we can hear from you in a safe way. Because if they trying to shoot him, I mean, I can understand why he ain't trying to come out and hang out, in public, because, unlike the other ones, they might let him get through. So listen, and you also know that I really want to talk about what's going on in the State House. But you guys should know more than 50 bills have been passed. But the only thing that I really want to rant about is, Mike Braun, I mentioned it earlier, his tax cut plan. His tax cut plan really is about making it so that municipalities have less to work with, right? He even said, in the course of running for office and then after being elected and talking about these tax cuts, people are going to have to do more with less. But ain't nobody talking about the fact that Micah Beckwith just bought on tax dollar money this really ridiculous expensive SUV because apparently his contingency is big. All of the guys on his team are big. Get a minivan with the sliding doors. You ain't got to have the $80,000 Denali or whatever the hell. Or what about Diego Morales? Look, do y'all even know what he's been doing? In 2023, Morales hired his brother-in-law for a 6-figure salary. In October of 23, he used his executive branch agency to adhere to guidance from the State Department when it comes to bonuses. He gave bonuses to everybody without accountability. And then he didn't show up for his March 18th Senate appropriations conversation because he was in India. I'm going to need Mike Braun to not talk about how municipalities can do more with less when members of his own administration are out here spending money, making it rain, like straight up making it rain. The hypocrisy of Republicans. Look, I know that we ain't perfect. Democrats, I'm not trying to say that we are. We got our own issues. But don't sit around and tell me that you want to cut costs and save money and you want to doge for Indiana and your people are out spending all the money, like redoing offices. You know what I'm saying? These are government offices, not your house. This ain't your crib. It's my crib. I just want them to put the same amount of energy in making sure that we have good roads and bring down gas prices and all the other stuff while they trying to buy SUVs. Oh, by the way, I just saw, another way we could, really increase revenue here in the state of Indiana is passing marijuana laws. There's a bill going through the House, the chamber now that says you can't even advertise for marijuana on billboards. They be worried about the wrong things. They worried about the wrong things. We got people out here struggling, losing their jobs. People are losing their jobs. I got text messages. My funding got cut. They just got rid of my DEI program. I don't have a job anymore. All of these things are happening. And now is the time for us to take that energy and get to work. So here's my call to action. He said get involved. He heard him talk about doing some grassroots stuff. There are organizations, there are nonprofit organizations right now that are doing the work that the government's supposed to be doing, but they laying people off every 15 minutes. Do you have a little bit of time right now, since we don't have any elections in Indiana this year, that you can volunteer, give some of your time, give some of your money to these nonprofit organizations who are out here doing the work? There's too many for me to name for you right now. You can always use the Google machine, whatever interests you. If it's elderly care, if it's child care, if it's learning a new skill and education, whatever it is, there's a nonprofit out here doing that work. If it's reproductive health care, there's a nonprofit. Find a nonprofit to donate about, a Saturday a quarter. And if you can do more, right? And let's find ways to help each other in the community. And this is all over the state. Let's find ways to help our sisters and brothers who are losing their jobs, who the kids are still looking to go on vacation or go to summer camp. See if you can sponsor a kid to a summer camp if you can afford it. There's enough for us to do out here to sustain our community, and we can pick up the slack while the apartheid-loving South African is taking a chainsaw to the necessary services of human beings in this country. Guys, we got almost a whole hour with the congressman. That's how real he is. I'm just saying. So now, next week, mark your calendars if you're still with me. Next week, I got Karen Talion, the new Indiana Democratic Party chair. We're going to ask some questions and see what her plan is and her vision so that you can hear from her, right? You guys know I'm all about love. I don't ask gotcha questions. I'm not here to embarrass nobody. So if you're looking for me to come with a knife instead of some flowers, you're not gonna get that. You're not. You can't make me either. So I'm bringing the chairwoman on, the first chairwoman since Delaney was chair. It's been so long that we've had a woman leading the party. So I'm excited about having that conversation with Karen Talion. I've known her for years. I'm interested in her plan, and then also how we can help her accomplish those things. Because as me and Dana talked about in the last podcast, there's only one person getting paid in the party other than the staff, and that's the chair of the party. Everybody else, everybody on the central committee, district chairs, county chairs, PCs, we are all volunteers. So there's a place for you to volunteer. All right, that's my show for tonight, y'all. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. I love the engagement. Thank y'all for donating to his campaign, all the things. Guys, this is so amazing. We can do this. Cory Booker showed us that love can last longer than hate. All right, y'all. I'll holler at y'all next time. Peace.
Turn Left is the property of Black Pearl IT Solutions. Executive producer, Indiana's own Dana Black. Music by www.bensound.com.